Gentle Parenting is producing feral, illiterate iPad kids by Brett Cooper.
Guys, modern parents are exhausted, and their Gen Alpha children are out of control to the point that even teachers are quitting in revolt. And as it turns out,
Oh yeah, I've seen so many stories of just teachers over the past handful of years quitting thanks to Gen Z and now the older end of Gen Alpha that's entering school, and it's like, oh my god, these kids are just bad. They are awful. They don't listen. They were never told no.
Of the century, gentle parenting apparently does not work. So instead, you should let your kids F around and find out. And I'm not joking about that, guys. I am saying that literally. Look at this recent headline from the Wall Street Journal. Goodbye, gentle parenting. Hello, F around and find out. Parents are ditching the softer approach to child rearing that has dominated the culture and taking a harder line. Out feral, they're feral. Guys,
yay, this is such a good thing for society. Gentle parenting, I don't know how that ever became a thing. I guess it was just against the, oh, but I don't want to spank my child. I don't want to do things that could be found as child abuse. And it's like, it's not abuse, it's discipline. There's levels to it. Yeah, there's age range where it's appropriate to spank your kids when they're misbehaving. At some point, it'll be non-effective anymore, and you gotta find some other way. But, you gotta also figure out ways to curb children's anger, because some kids get mad when if you, for example, I will admit I was the kid who got quite mad when things were taken from me, things that were privileges, video games and other media tech things that I would had as a kid, and that they would get taken from me. I got real mad. In fact, I at one point broke the inner pane of a window. And, that was pretty bad for a while.
this is the best news we could have gotten for our culture, for our society, for the future of humanity.
Yes,
for the
it is.
workforce, for future generations. This is incredibly positive. We should all be celebrating this, finally. I mean, it is only what society and teachers and Sephora employees have been...
It's about a decade late.
...begging for the last few years. Now, before I tell you why Sephora is going to be excited about this, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channel if you've not already. And, of course, ring that notification.
You do that here too. Like, subscribe, notifications on. I upload twice a day right now, so I got plenty of stuff for you. If you are a YouTube viewer, an avid watcher.
Notification bell to stay up to date on all of our episodes. And of course, if you want to be up to date on live events and new
go
merch
join
and
her,
all things like that,
her
go to
stuff. Check her out.
That is the hub for all of that information. So speaking of Sephora, if you do not know...
And Brett can't speak on this to an extent because she just had a child, so she's going to be going through firsthand experience for herself raising a kid. So it'll be pretty nice to see, you know, can she practice what she preaches? I 100% think she can.
What I am talking about, if you do not remember the episodes that I did about this in years past, let me jog your memory because this is truly insane. This is what has been happening at Sephora's.
Lately, Sephora employees...
Oh, I've seen some of these.
TikTok that every time they work...
These stores are starting to want to ban. And that Discord notification was her video, not mine.
A shift, the majority of customers are children under the age of 13 that have no manners. They go up to the sample section and quite literally destroy everything and make a huge mess that they don't even bother cleaning up. In fact, some workers are saying that the kids will open up packaged products from a set just to take one or two items, thus resulting in the store losing hundreds if not thousands of dollars worth of...
Oh, it's probably beyond thousands. It's probably into the tens to maybe nationwide hundreds of thousands of loss.
So basically, TLDR, the issue was that there were young people, tweens, running rampant at stores like Sephora in the mall, destroying product, being completely without parental supervision, or the parents were there and were doing nothing about it and were just giggling and laughing because their kids were being cute and funny because they have no control over their children. And people were speaking out, and this created a whole conversation about Gen Alpha, about child rearing, about gentle parenting, and the fact that it really was not working in practice.
I mean, I saw a video of a girl, I think it was a girl in Walmart, I believe, who was just grabbing things off shelves and throwing them to the ground. She was in an area smashing wine bottles, and like there was fruit that was being thrown on the floor, and it was like this area was just a disaster zone. It's insane how much gentle parenting is harming the culture. Like, I bet you the parent of that child was not charged for anything that store lost in the damages. It's, or via the employee who had had to go clean all that up. Like, I've worked those environments. That's not a great time to have. An accidental spill is bad enough to have to clean something up, but when it's someone's kid doing things intentionally, you just need to control your freaking kids, people.
And all of that took place over the last year or so. And it is these Sephora kids, those types of kids that you saw in that TikTok, that have teachers literally quitting and walking out of schools. This headline reads, "Teachers are quitting their jobs in droves as a new generation of delinquent students push their patience to the limit." And that was in August of 2024. I also have a myriad of old episodes about that. This is something that has been going on for a while now.
Yeah, teachers are a big part here, where they can only do so much when they have a classroom of 30 students, and then, they're making a note to a parent, "Hey, your child was bad today," and the parent, "Oh, what did you do bad today?" The child, says some version of it that might be true-ish, and the parent's like, "Okay, well, just don't do that again. You gotta stop doing that." And then it repeats. It's like, no, kids need to be disciplined. They need to be respectful. Like, there are things kids do nowadays that, oh man, if you grew up like I did, and you did something bad, and then your parents gave you that look, you knew you were fucked when you got home. You knew you were screwed. They were going to beat your ass, and you were gonna regret it. And it was like, yeah, there's a level of fear respect that needs to be had from child to parent. One of my favorite videos I've seen was a child who laid down in a grocery store aisle, started screaming their head off, waving their arms, and so the mom, who I guess has done it before maybe, laid down and did the same thing next to the kid. The kid kind of got up, looked down at mom, and was like stunned, like they didn't know what to do. She completely won. And I was like, yeah, you showed him what he's doing wrong, and maybe he'll stop. Maybe he'll realize, this is wild. Why am I doing this? Because I am upset. Like, it's children and their emotions. You gotta teach them ways to manage them.
It's been an epidemic of out-of-control children. Also, you can see here, they have an additional article under this one, like, read more. Generation Alpha slammed as feral and illiterate iPad kids. So that is the point that I am making.
Yeah, there are studies that show that, like, I think it's 60% of kids nowadays do not read at the correct grade level, and most of them are reading at 2 to 4 grade levels behind what they should be, and it's really kind of becoming a freaky, scary thing for society if people can't read to learn and understand the information put in front of them. That I worry that we'll have a bunch of brainwashed people voting improperly based on emotion rather than logic.
This has been a problem. And obviously, all of this cannot be chalked up just to iPads. There's a deeper problem there. It all goes back to parenting. Specifically, in my opinion, gentle parenting. The trend that now is hopefully on the way out. So if you don't know what gentle parenting is, allow me to introduce you. Gentle parenting, in short, is this kind of discipline or lack thereof strategy that does not yell or shame. It's not strict. They certainly do not spank their children. It is focused heavily on a child's emotions, not hurting their feelings, validating everything. Just watch this video and you can sort of get a taste.
There. Sorry, I was trying to do something real quick.
I am so sorry that I said that it was time to go. Gentle hands, gentle hands. You're having so many big feelings
Trying
right
to solve
now.
a little audio issue.
To validate them. Gentle hands. Hands are for gentle gentle?
Now, obviously, this is satire, this is exaggerated,
that should fix any audio
but it also
issues that
isn't
may have been
really
had up till
exaggerated,
this
because
point.
you can go down a rabbit hole of these types of videos on TikTok.
Much
You can see
better.
parents literally give instructional videos on how to not tell your child no. Because the word no, like the word stop, it invokes big feelings and bad feelings, and you don't want to encourage that in your children. You want them to feel safe. And so even if your child is knocking furniture off of tables, even if they are slapping people and biting people, you cannot be strict with them. You have to be gentle, because they're just a little human being that can't understand things, and they're having big feelings. I'm sorry. No, if a 4-year-old is biting you and slapping you, something must be done. You cannot just say gentle
You can't
hands.
just
But
let your
people
kids
tried. They tried. They wanted to do the gentle thing. They wanted
control
to
you.
validate the big feelings. They wanted to see how it would work. And guys, the results are in. Did not work. Teachers are quitting. Sephora employees are up in arms. And so something had to change. But before we keep going, I want to thank today's sponsor. Now, did you know that everything you do online is being tracked from what you watch?
Whoop.
Free. That is expressvpn.com/Cooper. But this was a huge trend for years. It really rose to prominence over the last decade, specifically with millennials and early Gen Z parents. And I think that this happened for a myriad of reasons. Now, first of all, millennials and the older Gen Zs, we were raised by baby boomers and Gen X who were much more authoritative in their parenting styles. And some of that authoritative style was good. And I think my mom was very strict in a great way. But for others, they saw that kind of strictness as just being strict for no reason, just being very cold, very harsh. You're going to do what I say just because I say so. And these parents wanted to do the exact opposite with their Gen Alpha kids. And the second reason that
100%. It was very much a opposite course correction, and too far from the, rough, tough parents, helicopter parents who are on your case all the time about everything, trying to raise, the perfect person who immediately goes off to college and gets into a lot of trouble. It's like, well, let's course correct and go with the other parent who, no, I'm sorry we've upset you there. I'm sorry these things, you're not there to apologize to your kid. This is your kid first, your friend never. This is always going to be, you're the parent, they're the kid. Once they become an adult, then you can change up how you do a little bit of the discussions, talking. You'll have different conversations at that age, but it's like when they're young kids, under 10, I'd say, a lot of it is just, you be the parent, they're the kid, you're in charge, they do what you say, they have input. If I want to go to McDonald's, we have budget money for McDonald's? Okay, let's go to McDonald's. Simple. Things like that they choose, or, they make a Christmas list, a birthday gift list, and they, these are the things they'd like, which, those are some of the choices kids get to make. Going on vacations, if you want to stop somewhere, or when you're at the hotel or whatever, want to swim in the pool, go walk around outside, it's up to the kid what to do. It's like, those are some of the choices they can make. However, it's, the overarching, these are the rules, this is the things you do in this house, this is how we run things, this is what you're going to do day in, day out. Parents, you must decide that.
I think this really took off is because of the internet, and specifically because of mom influencers. Because women's feeds, I don't even have a child yet. Well, by this time I will have a baby, because you're going to be watching this while I'm on maternity leave. But at this point, as I'm filming this, I do not have a human child that I am parenting yet. And my feed is full of parenting videos and moms instructing other moms on how to raise their kids, the right way to do it, how to not be.
I think that a little bit comes from her being pregnant and starting to look more and more and more at all that stuff for parenting related. So that might be a little bias in her own personal feed.
Too harsh with your kids, how to be strict but not too strict, all of these things. And for the first time, these new parents are turning to these online influencers and digital experts over their parents and their grandparents, and over what I would even say is just common sense when it comes to dealing with other human beings and raising children. And the reason why I am painting this whole picture and giving you guys all of this context is to just prove the point that this parenting style did not work. But you don't just have to take it from me. Listen to this.
We're teaching our child that your emotions and your feelings are more important than everybody else. What you're going through is more important than even what mom and dad are going through, because you won't do what we ask you to do, but now I have to emotionally be there to be able to coddle you in a moment. And what happens then is you're the center of the world. You're the center of the universe. Well, what happens when they get to grade school? What happens when the kids around them don't want to coddle their emotions? What happens as an adult when your boss, even when your spouse, they can't take any accountability and control their emotions because everything is about them.
That is the biggest primary thing I will always say is you must teach your kids how to control and manage their emotions. The emotional reaction that can create things like, crimes of passion. When someone all of a sudden, a guy comes home, finds his wife cheating, and then all of a sudden in a fit of rage and why did you betray the love we had for each other? And then he either kills the lover or in a fit of rage kills them both. Like, crime of passion. It was a very emotional moment. Something bad happened, and well, now 3 lives were ruined, or 2 lives were ruined. Or yeah, probably 3 still. Doesn't matter in that case which scenario you're in. 3 lives are ruined. That's the biggest example I can give for, how to control your emotions. And, if someone who was a lot, all of a sudden he comes home, finds his wife in bed, all of a sudden you get the one emotion of anger and you just, get out of my house. And then you and your wife have a discussion and that probably ends in goodbye to one of you, out the door.
This isn't just about the trend of gentle parenting. It is about the fact, as this man was saying, that kids are not integrated into their parents' lives anymore. Instead, it is the reverse. These parents decide that everything needs to revolve around their kids, and
that is exactly a big one. Not everything your kid does, you need to follow. Sometimes you got to let your kid be by himself or be with his friends and doing just their stuff. Well, you do your own stuff. Just because you have a kid doesn't mean you don't have hobbies anymore. You should still have your hobbies, and maybe while you're doing your hobbies, your kid pocks his head up. What you doing, Dad? I definitely did that a few times with my dad playing computer games, and when he was, building stuff, doing different projects around the house, I would try to see what I could help with. A lot less on the car stuff. I'm a lot less mechanically inclined car-wise. But as far as, the technical knowledge of PCs and other tech-related products, I'm keeping it vague, so I don't go off on a tangent. Too much ADHD in one head,
setting them up for a life of failure. My first thought is, maybe that's one of the reasons why people are so scared to have kids, because they look around at parents, they see parents' pre-existing lives come to a screeching halt once they have kids, but it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. Your entire life should not be oriented around your children and about protecting their feelings, especially for the sake and for the future of these children, which brings me to a really interesting thread that I found on X that I want to read you. This mom was talking about this trend, and she said, when I was raised in the late 70s to 90s as an active kid with many interests, I had after-school activities almost every day and parents who leaned in heavily to steward me. I needed it. However, there was a really big difference between then and now. I remember that my parents would take me to grown-up parties and family gatherings, and after amusing myself as long as I could, I would fall asleep on numerous coat piles. I did not demand TV or an iPad. I did not demand to go home out of boredom. I lived my life around them. Today's parents are living around our kids. This inherently makes them little narcissists, the center of everything. Additionally, it is making adults less autonomous and parenthood less joyful as a result. It's no wonder that more and more parents are opting out of parenthood. The model is less successful for all involved. I'm not saying we should go all the way back to having to be asked if we knew where our children were at 10 p.m., but we do need to think about how we approach things.
And that is an incredible way to put it, but also, you got the 70s to the 90s that were just nearing the end of that, getting into the bigger tech boom of having more tech in the house. And it wasn't like, oh, yeah, there's, computers and such, but you don't have one in every home. The house phone is like one singular corded home phone. People didn't have cell phones all over. There were no extra things that were also entertaining. I'm not advocating for turning kids and people into iPad, kids into iPad kids. However, I'm just saying there's a reason that we have these tools now. And, it's not supposed to be anytime the kid's crying, pass them the iPad. You get that. Once you get that, it's like, oh, the kid now knows I cry, I get tablet. Like, that's not a good thing you want to be teaching them. You want to be, hey, why are you whining? What's your problem right now? And, if they're verbal enough to tell you, hopefully they can. There are edge cases in every single spot. If someone might have a high level of autism, or if they're too young still to understand, and then, yeah, maybe you pass the tablet a little more, just to keep them a little quieter. But as they get older, you got to wean them off it by like 5-6 years old. They shouldn't be getting the tablet all the time. They should know how to operate touchscreen devices, because they're all over the place in today's society. That's one good positive to the tablets and whatnot, but they should also know how to do other things and have physical toys and have physical things to do. Go outside and get fresh air and be a kid with other kids, not just a kid thrown down an iPad.
And while this might sound completely counterintuitive, I think that this was one of the major benefits that I experienced thanks to homeschooling. Like, I had all the time in the world to get my school done, to go do extracurriculars, to fit everything else in, whether I was doing gymnastics or rock climbing or dancing. But when I wasn't doing school or doing an activity, I literally went everywhere with my parents. Like, they had a life, and I fit into that.
For every year of my life growing up, I was in a public school, normal grade school stuff, except for 4th grade where I was homeschooled. And that's when I was finally also diagnosed ADHD and, put on meds, and we figured out why I was a bit of a problem kid before then. It's because my brain was broken. And so once that happened, but everything was much better afterwards. But during that year of being homeschooled, my younger brother, he was just starting, I believe it was preschool or kindergarten at that time. And so he would go into school around like 11 o'clock to noonish. And my older brothers were already in elementary, so they were gone earlier in the day. And so I would start my day of school at like 11 a.m. I wouldn't have to get up super early. I got to sleep in. I got plenty of sleep. I started my day at 11 and I finished at like 2 or 3 o'clock of the like schoolwork stuff. And then usually I'd have some level of exercise or something each and every day to do as well. And it was a pretty simple homeschool program as far as the work itself. But once I went back to regular school for 5th grade, I felt so far ahead because everything I had learned over the 4th grade year, I relearned again in 5th grade for some of the topics, 6th grade, all the way up through partway through 7th grade. And I was like, that homeschool program put me 3-ish years ahead of everybody else, to where I brought I think it was my history book in to 7th grade for the first semester. And during the first semester, and I showed my teacher, and she's like, you mean you learned all this in 4th grade? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, I'm sorry, you'll have to learn it again, but I guess you'll do well on the test.
I would go to the office with my dad and sit and do my Saxon math textbook while he was in meetings. I would do church things with my mom. I would sit next to her while she had lunch with friends and either be quiet or try to join in on the conversation and learn how to be social and interact with adults. I just had to learn how to not be bored and how to behave, and I had to realize that my parents' world and the world itself did not revolve around me as a child. And like that mom is saying, and like that man in the podcast was saying, that is not the case anymore. And I think that has informed a huge chunk of these negative childhood behaviors that we are now experiencing on a daily basis in our society. And to be fair, as a caveat and a kind of disclaimer, I do think that there is a balance between not upending your life for your kids 24/7 and not avoiding your responsibilities as a parent. There is a fine line that you have to walk. Case in point, there are parents who want to send their kids to school to read, but do not want to read them at home because, quote unquote, it is boring. That is something that my generation is literally openly saying. I'm not being dramatic. This is a quote.
I believe that 100%. There's a good portion of my generation that in school, it was like, I don't want to read the book. I'll just go check out the Spark Notes and get the short version. Which, yeah, that does track for why the newer generation doesn't want to read. I thankfully grew up in a household that, my mom loved reading to us as kids. In fact, we have so many leftover kids books from me and my 3 brothers growing up that my niece now, she's got a literal, library shelf worth of books that she can read, and basically has a kid, older books, but still good books to read from now all the way till she's probably 12 years old, maybe. So she's got another decade worth of content in book form just to be able to read each and every day. It's awesome.
This is from The Guardian. It is so boring. Gen Z parents don't like reading to their kids, and teachers are worried. Yeah. Understandably, screen time has increasingly replaced story time, and experts warn that this could lead to children falling behind. I mean, yeah, do you want even more teachers to quit? Do you want even less resources for your children? That is...
I have a prediction for what school will be like in 20 to 30 years if this trend continues, is we will run out of teachers in classrooms. Schools will just become digital online programs that you sign your kid up for, and you put them in front of a laptop or something. Maybe the government sponsors it, whatever. A cheap little Chromebook or something on that level of technology for the computer. And the kid just sits on that for, their school day stuff. And then I don't know how easily it'll be or hard it'll be to enforce it, but you'll give the kids some kind of workout program. It's some, just to do stuff in class or it'll be, the one spot that kids go and get to meet up. Because that is one big thing that will get lost, is even from the Zoom stuff from 2020 COVID era, people have lost that connection in the classroom. They didn't get to have their friends around them for that time period. And it really, really, I think, damaged a lot of people to where the next coming years are going to be really interesting to watch and see how that affected people, because there are some people who had their initial high school graduations canceled, and then there were still a handful of years later going into college, and it's like, well, am I going to be able to have a college graduation, or is that going to be digital too?
What this is leading towards. You obviously cannot make your children the center of the universe and teach them that that is what they should expect, but you also do have to step up and be a parent. Teachers are obviously there to teach, but they can't do it alone, especially in classrooms with 30, 35 plus students. And between this and the awful behaviors, I do not blame them for walking out the door and quitting. We'll dive back in, but first, a quick word from our sponsor. Feel like this tools you will actually use and your skin will thank you. Now, I think another recent parenting fact that is not helping children out at all is the fact that parenting has become so incredibly performative. And when I say performative, I mean that moms and dads now care more about how their followers view them and how people online view them than they care about not raising little hellraisers that make these teachers want to walk out and quit. They film themselves gentle parenting, trying to get brownie points and accolades online. Meanwhile, their child is literally on camera throwing a chair at them. And no, this is not an exaggeration. Just watch.
Are you ready to be nice? Okay, we're gonna sit out here until you're ready to be nice. We don't need to get... Hey, no, hands are...
You couldn't waterboard a clip like this out of me. Seeing, her just upload this because is so crazy to me. I would record it maybe and have the video sit for, next time my kid's like, I've never done anything wrong, Mom. And I'd be like, oh, really? Or in my case, Dad. And it'd be like, oh, really, hun? Oh, really, son? You've never done anything bad. Well, let me just pull out example A, B, and C. And then I just pull out a clip of them misbehaving, throwing a tantrum, and then be like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, Dad. Don't ever play this. Can you delete this footage? And, if they requested, I would. After watching it one last time.
She's trying her best to stay calm.
Ready to be nice?
This isn't good ways to teach your kid to manage their emotions. This kid is crashing out, needs to be turned around, sat in the corner, and be made to sit and forced to be calmed down for a little bit.
I told you guys in that first video, it was not satire. Let's be calm. The child throws a chair. Let's put our hands down. I'm sorry. That is when you turn off the camera. That is when you take your child inside. They go into timeout. Something has to be done. Posting this online and getting clicks for being this virtuous, gentle parent, expert, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone could see this person other than just a bad parent. They are not doing the, tasks they've assigned themselves by having sex and creating a life and choosing to raise that kid themselves. That you've chosen this as your new job, parent the kid properly, or you're going to create a menace in society that might just wind up in jail or in the morgue early.
It is not worth these behaviors. And it's so unhealthy for the child, but it's also unhealthy for the parents. It's unhealthy for the parents because they are spending more time filming themselves, worrying about what people online think, trying to follow these newfangled parenting trends, than they are actually focusing on raising and guiding their children well. I mean, in one study on motherhood, this was done recently, a mom specifically said, quote, social media makes you feel like you're the only one failing. Yeah, well, it's probably because moms are chasing these picture-perfect lives and picture-perfect styles of parenting that they see on TikTok, and they're consistently falling short because, shocker, very little of what you see on social media is actually real or obtainable, and very little of these idealistic, gentle parenting styles actually work in practice. And so they are feeding these parents a lie. These parents constantly feel like they are falling short and they're failing when they're really just set up for failure from the get-go. They are
100% agree. If you set your child up from the failure from the get-go, as, a young kid, and they think doing certain, having certain actions when they have certain emotions is a good thing, it's not a good thing for society. It's not a good thing for those who have to interact with them. And it's really not good for the people who wanted and grew up saying, I want to become a teacher and teach the next generation. And then the next generation is misbehaving, not listening, they're impossible to teach at all. It's like if you actively taught them, if you actively were teaching them and grading them, if in the same sense that people were 10, 15 years prior, a lot of them would probably fail and not pass their grade. A lot of them would have to be left behind, and at this point, I think some of them should be. If they're not learning properly, they should be behind to learn it properly before they can move on to the next grade.
Realistically trying to do it all because they're comparing themselves to unrealistic expectations and trends that are being posted online. But thankfully, and this is the reason why I brought all of this up, thankfully, things are starting to change. People are walking away from gentle parenting. They are walking away from these trends in favor of the revolutionary concept of natural consequences. Guys, can you believe it? It's like we've made a whole circle here. We tried something new. We saw it didn't work. We are back. And what I believe is the core tenet of good parenting, which is natural consequences, aka F around and find out, as you saw in that first headline from the Wall Street Journal. And this means that instead of using gentle hands and validating all of these big feelings and sitting back while your children are literally throwing chairs at you, you let them experience the consequences of their choices and their actions. This is what was written in that article. Carla Dillon, who's a mother, tried lots of ways to discipline her rambunctious 13-year-old, including making him write out the same contrite sentence 100 times. But when he sprayed her with a water gun at a campground after she asked him not to, she saw only one option. She threw him into the pond, clothes and all. Some of the best lessons in life are the hard ones. The article goes on to say that F around and find out is based on the idea that parents can ask and warn, but if a child breaks the rules, mom and dad aren't standing in the way of the repercussions. Again, revolutionary concept. Can you believe that, guys? The children will have to be disciplined, that they will have to face repercussions.
I love it. It's the best thing to happen. It's, like she said, we've gone full circle back around from gentle parenting from you have the super strict parenting to the gentle parenting to now we've got decisions or consequences of our actions. And it's like, well, now we just need the justice system of America to do its job if the parents fail to do their job. Like, if as a parent you fail enough that your child goes out and commits some kind of level of crime, whether that's, just disturbance in an area or upend and, steal something or etc. an incredible amount of different variety of crime that gets committed across the whole spectrum of everybody. So I can't exactly say which crime your child would commit, but let's say he goes out and he steals something big, some expensive item, because he thinks he can pawn it off or sell it real quick and make a quick dollar. Okay. Well, he gets caught. The cops arrest him. And then he spends one single night in jail, gets bonded out for super cheap, and then he just, he faces a few fines, half his charges get dropped, and he's back out, didn't learn anything, and does it again. Well, now if he, actually was charged for said crime and had to pay back the value of the item he stole, and then some, maybe some community service work, and realizing, oh, by doing that action, it's caused me to have to do all this now. Maybe I won't do that again. That hopefully by the newer consequences, hopefully that they can actually get enforced.
Won't bring your raincoat? Walk home in the downpour. Didn't feel like having lasagna for dinner? Survive until breakfast. Left your toy on the floor again? Go find it in the trash under the lasagna that you didn't eat. Parenting that is light on discipline has dominated the culture in recent decades. That is putting it mildly. But critics blame the approach for some of Gen Z's problems in adulthood. They cite surveys that show that young adults are struggling with workplace relationships. Was it because their parents never told them no? And suffering from depression and anxiety.
Maybe.
Was it because their parents refereed all of their problems? And to all of that, I would say a resounding yes. I think I've told this story a million times, but I did a business program at UC Berkeley while I was still in college. Again, I feel like I'm like beating a dead horse right now. But this class was so instrumental in how I thought about my generation, the way that we were raised. But I was taking an interpersonal relationships class, and in this class, my professor specifically pointed out the ways that huge HR departments and big companies around the country were preparing for Gen Z, for my generation. And they were preparing for the fact that we had not been disciplined, that we were soft, that we needed to be spoken to gently, that we needed extra care and more time off and more concessions because we were totally different and had been raised in a very soft way. And I remember receiving that information and being so embarrassed and horrified.
Yeah.
Because that is not at all the way I was raised.
Yeah. I was raised not quite like Brad, of course. She had a very unique life, being able to have her family be wealthy enough to uproot, move across the country, and move back and do all the different... She's lived in so many different places, it's hard to keep track of. It's like, yeah... Her parents actually, saw what their kid could do, believed in him enough to be able to go, okay, can we afford to do X, Y, Z? All right, let's go do it. And then along with that came, everything along that happened there. Her family life seemed pretty good. She seemed to have grown up very well. And then there's me, who grew up in just basically one spot for half my life. Half my childhood, and when we moved as a family for better job opportunities for my mom and everything, and we moved from Flint to Grand Rapids. If just go look up the average earning in each city, and you'll realize, yeah, we lucked out quite a bit more nowadays, and I'm very happy to not be in Flint. Go check out my video for reacting to Tyler Oliveira if you want to check out anything related to what's still going on in Flint today. He did a very good job, I think. I didn't recognize any of the areas he went to, but then again, I was 10 when we moved away, so go figure. I probably don't think you'd remember much around the before 10 at the childhood ages still from crime-ridden areas if your parents tried to avoid those areas on purpose.
And it seems so crazy to me that our society was just going to bend over backwards and accept this rather than look at parenting and go, obviously, we need to change course. Because sometimes, parents, kids simply just need to learn lessons the hard way so that they don't make the same mistakes again. Like, this is a great way to teach children that their decisions and their actions have consequences that they will face in the real world as adults. Yes, they will be loved by their parents no matter what, but they do have to take ownership of those choices and of those consequences. And this was basically what my mother mother lived by. Like, natural consequences was my mother's parenting philosophy. And I think that this is so summed up by one of the most iconic stories in my family. And my brother is probably going to be going, oh no, I know where you're going with this. He's watching this episode being so concerned. But all of this can be summed up by the...
Her brother probably feels the way any of my siblings would if I have an opportunity to tell some stories.
Incredible story of my brother with his Winnie the Pooh footy pajamas. Now, my brother, I think he was probably like 4 or 5 years old. This is my brother Chase. He was in preschool, and my mom had a little carpool group where she would go pick up a few of the kids and she would drive them all to preschool. And this one morning, my brother Chase, he's my oldest brother, he did not want to get dressed. Now, he was fully capable of getting dressed. His clothes were laid out. He knew how to put on his pants. He knew how to tie his shoes. He was fully capable of getting himself ready, getting his backpack, and going to the car. And the reason why that was important is because my mom had my twin brothers who were younger than Chase. And so she needed to be focused on getting these 2 twin infants into their car seats, wrestling them into the car, and Chase, again, fully capable of getting himself ready. But this morning, Chase had no desire to get ready. He was dancing around the house. He was singing. He was like, you're never going to catch me, Mom. I'm not going to get dressed. I'm going to go to school in my pajamas. And she was like, okay, yeah, you are if you don't get dressed. And he was like, you're going to have to catch me, all of this stuff. And he completely thought that by doing all of this, my mom was going to turn her attention completely to him and baby him and help him get ready so that he wouldn't actually go to school in his Winnie the Pooh footy pajamas. But my mom that day was completely over it. And so by the time that Reed and David, the twins, were in the car, she looked at Chase, who was still in his Winnie the Pooh footy pajamas, and said, okay, we'll get in the car. And he looked down, he was like, well, I'm in my pajamas. And she said, yeah, the hell you are. You're getting in the car. It's time to go to school. And so my brother, horrified, had to get in the car. She forced him in his footy pajamas. And my mom proceeded to drive to his first friend's house and pick up the carpool, drive to the other girl's house, pick her up. And my brother had to sit in the back seat and defend himself to his friends about why on earth he was wearing his footy pajamas. He then went into preschool where everybody else was in their clothes, and he had to be in his footy pajamas. And I believe, as the story goes, the preschool teacher was like, really? You're gonna make him go to school in your pajamas? My mom was like, yeah, he didn't want to get dressed, so this is what he has to deal with. And when she picked him up from school, Chase was so horrified. He was so embarrassed. He went immediately to his room. He put on his clothes, and he never wasted a single second ever again.
Imagine that. Action meet consequence.
Embarrassment, the horror, the having to explain why he was in his footy pajamas all day in preschool made him so proactive and so on top of getting dressed and ready in the morning and helping my mom with the babies. He never tried that again. And I feel like I just ranted for so long about my brother, but I also just have to say Alex did a similar thing. My mother-in-law was a very similar mother, and Alex was a very stubborn child. And there was one day when he also didn't want to get dressed. Apparently, this is just something that kids struggle with.
It might be a boy thing. I remember a few days, my mom wouldn't let me do it. It was basically, if you don't change, you will be going out the door in that outfit. And, you know, there were times where I was like, maybe I do want to go out in the outfit. And then I have that realization, do you really want your friends seeing what pajamas you wear? Not necessarily. Not unless they're also in pajamas too, and on a special, school dress day or something. Then, by all means, hands off, whatever.
He did not want to get dressed. He did not want to wear the sweater that my mother-in-law had laid out for him. And the way that he was going to get around this was by peeing on the sweater. And so my husband, at like 4 years old, peed on the sweater that he did not want to wear and went, okay, well, now you can't make me wear it. I'm not going to get dressed. I don't want to wear the itchy sweater. But my mother-in-law, because she's incredible, just like my mom, made Alex put on the pee-stained sweater, the soaking wet
Oh, that's amazing.
sweater. And go wherever they were going. I think maybe they were going to the pediatrician, something like that. But he had to sit there in the pee-soaked sweater because he had made the decision to pee all over it. And that was, unfortunately, the natural consequence. So this kind of parenting, it's not just being super strict and spanking your kids for no reasons. It is sometimes just hilariously letting them live out the consequences of the ridiculous things that they do. Now, another interesting aspect of this newfangled trend that really is just common sense that I'm a huge fan of is teaching your kids to actually have to follow through on their commitments, not to bail out your kids because, again, they're the center of the universe, but to say, hey, you signed up for something, you committed to something, you have to follow through. Crazy concept. They write about another parent, this Father Wellington, 46, a stand-up comedian from South Carolina, recalled that when he and his brother misbehaved, they had to stare into each other's eyes while their parents simultaneously spanked them. He hardly thinks it's excessive that he made his high school daughter go to color guard practice even after she realized that she hated it. Like, sorry, that's just a fact of life. This is what he had to say. He said, in the real world, when you commit to a loan or a car payment or a house payment or even a marriage, you have to finish that thing until it is over with. So this father paid for his daughter to join this group, to join the color guard, and even when she hated it, he said, sorry, we paid. You wanted to do this. You have to follow through. You are going to learn to follow through on your commitments. And
yeah, I would 100% be with that parent who is like, hey, we budgeted the money out to do this, pay for this thing for you, and we paid for it. We can't get our money back if you quit, so I think you should at least finish out this year, this season, whatever the time length of it is. If you don't want to go back next year, you don't have to. We won't pay for it next year. But because we did this year, action meet consequence. It's like, okay, I don't want it to, deter the kid from joining anything else in the future in case they don't like it and then they're forced to continue it. But it's like, this is a one time. Just be in the future. Maybe look up a little what you're getting into.
all of this is incredible because it is preparing children for the real world, where they will face consequences, where they will have to follow through on their commitments. Like, no matter how soft our culture gets, no matter how HR departments will bend and fold for Gen Z, these simply will just be facts of life, and it is objectively better to teach your children that young. And the sooner the kids learn that, the more confident and resilient they will become. And that does not mean that you are policing your children 24/7, helicoptering around everything they do to try to toughen them up. It just means, in my opinion, that you are being realistic and you're not treating them like a fine piece of china. Because the truth is, parenting is never going to be easy. No parent, no matter how much they love their children and being a parent, will ever say that this is an easy job. Raising and molding human beings is going to be complex, it is going to be difficult, but we have made it harder by turning it into some kind of curated performance for our social media followers. And more importantly, in my opinion, by trying to reinvent the wheel of parenting. Like, in this process, it's no wonder that parents have burned out. It's no wonder that teachers are quitting.
I'm going to be honest and have a possibly hot take here. I think if a parent is uploading their child in videos, the video should not be allowed to have any monetization thrown towards it, so that parents aren't incentivized to attempt to monetize their own children for their own financial gain. Because I think that creates a bigger issue down the road if the child all of a sudden turns around and goes, hey, my parent just used my likeness for all these years and I didn't make a cent from it. Or I only made a teeny bit of the amount and there was no contract, even though I was a part of the content this percent of the time. I would say, for giving an example, I was in the content 68% of the time and only got 6% of the money. What the heck is that? Like, I should be paid a proportionate amount to the proportionate amount of time I was in the content. But if the content makes nothing, guess what? Now there's no issues down the road to potentially be had. And there will probably be fewer parents attempting to upload their children for views. I saw a picture that actually Brett uploaded yesterday of her holding her baby where all you can see is the back of the baby's head. And one of the comments made me laugh pretty hard. It was, hey, look at Brett and her Mini Cooper. And so then it took me down and I put in my head this image of her holding a little tiny mini version of the car in her arms instead of the baby. And I'm just like, imagine, anytime the kid pops up, now it's just the image of a Mini Cooper on screen.
Because objectively, it has not worked. We need to let children fail. We need to let children face consequences and let them figure it out. That will only make them stronger and smarter and better. And I know that gentle parenting talks a lot about, affirming your kids and not being too harsh and being kind to them. But the kindest thing that you can do for a child is to mold them and raise them up well and prepare them for a good life. And that is exactly what natural consequence parenting is doing. And thank God it is back in vogue. Good evening, America. Disturbing reports tonight from the grocery store meat aisle. Sources confirm over 4 billion...
All right, this is just an ad break. But yeah, video, that was a great one. Any more today?
putting it together, and I hope that you enjoyed it.
Okay, yeah, no, nothing more, just her outro. But yeah, that was a fantastic video. I'm going to toss a like on her video. Toss a like on mine if you didn't already. Hit the subscribe button, notification bells, and have a wonderful day. And I will see you later.